Hello, and welcome to the Value of Testing podcast. My name is Randy Rice. I'll be your host today. And I want to talk about a topic that I wrote recently about in one of my blog posts. I titled the article, Crossing the Virtual Line. And, I've been giving this a lot of thought over the last few weeks. I've been talking with people. I've been watching various podcasts about this and reading a lot about what's going on right now with Agentic AI. And one of the things that I've noticed, of course, is hard to ignore, right, is that we went from the idea of AI as used as a tool or an assistant, augmented kind of use to what we do as humans, to one now where AI is being trusted by more and more people to have agency. And this agentic AI is really being adopted really quickly. And as a tester, I'm really trying to analyze this and to just ask some really basic questions. And maybe the first basic question is, can agentic AI even be tested? I raised that question. I got some really interesting responses out on LinkedIn about it. Let me kind of lay out my thinking on this. This virtual line that I'm talking about is that there's a line that exists, and it exists not only in software but in other kinds of domains like writing and music and movies, just to name a few of those. And the line is the release point of whatever it is being built. Now, before that release point, you have an opportunity to find and fix defects before your intended audience actually experiences those. And so basically, in pre-release, testing is possible. Even if we look at the basic question of what is testing, it has to do with doing things in a controlled environment, maybe even carefully designed, replicable, that you can repeat them and that you can try them and that you can actually have some idea of how something is going to behave, or at least you can learn how something behaves. But the main point is that you have a sandbox to work in. You have some safety around where something is going to operate. Now, after that release point, then defects and problems can still be identified, but now they're in the real world. They're live, and they're affecting users and customers. This term, testing in production, is one that I've heard for many years. And it's really contradictory when you think about it, because it's no longer a test. It's really an observation of what's happening in live operation. The problems that get discovered in production or real world use are much more expensive to fix, and they carry a lot higher risk than those that are discovered before crossing the release point. So the trend toward releasing without any formal decision really became popular, I think, with the rise of DevOps and continuous deployment. The idea is that problems can be fixed on failure without much consequence. And in some cases, that actually does work, but in other cases, there have been some major problems and some major losses that have occurred. So now take that into the age of AI, especially agentic AI. We're seeing all kinds of software being released not only continuously, but also autonomously. In fact, it's not just software that's crossing the line. These AI agents are being given power to make decisions and perform actions entirely on their own in the real world. Even when so-called guardrails are in place, there have been recent cases in which an AI agent has violated or just simply ignored them, causing severe damage. Now, it's kind of interesting that there have been some tests done with agentic AI in some somewhat controlled environments, And the things that are being learned there are kind of disturbing, actually. The things that AI is able to do on its own, make decisions. I'm sure you've probably read and heard about the experiments being done where AI agents have tried to blackmail someone. They came about that all on their own. They came up with that idea when their existence was being threatened, that they would do anything to preserve their existence. Kind of scary stuff when you think about it. So this is another virtual line that's being crossed, and that is the use of AI from an assistant moving to that more of an agent, and then even having subagents. And this is all escalating really quickly and with some very real risk. Consider the example of Amazon's agents in the first quarter of 2026 this year, which experienced a series of high-impact critical failures. This is not just one failure, okay? This is a pattern that cost the company and its users millions of dollars. Millions of orders were lost. And this has prompted Amazon to add human safety checks and guardrails, but the ones that I saw described were extremely thin. Now, in recent days, I've noticed a sharp increase in content that encourage people to use agentic AI to automate mundane daily tasks, like responding to email and things like that. But the people that are behind that content often fail to mention the risk. I saw one kind of humorous story in a video. I think it was from the podcaster Hannah Fry, that she was telling the story about how they created this AI agent to buy the cheapest possible package of 50 paper clips. Well, the agent did just that. But in the process of searching the world for the best price, it incurred a cost of over $100 just in token usage. Now, let's scale this to how businesses are considering creating an army of AI agents to perform real-world tasks based on prompts and instructions and even guardrails. Can this be tested in any reliable way? Well, here's my unpopular opinion after giving this a lot of thought. I don't think agentic AI can be tested in real-world production. And I give the following reasons. There's three big ones, in my opinion. First of all, production use is not a testing environment, but instead it's a monitoring situation. So even if you could create a test environment, it wouldn't be realistic enough to simulate the real world. Secondly, AI agents can operate at a much higher speed and scale, enough to simulate anything that we could do in any form of testing, including automated testing, and that couldn't even match the speed of what AI can do. Plus, by the time a problem might even be detected, the damage has already been done. And it takes time to create the test automation, even if it could be applicable to agentic AI. And finally, the third big reason is that we all know that AI is non-deterministic. It makes its own choices. It takes actions based on such a wide variety of input that no test could ever anticipate. We only know acceptable and unacceptable when we see it. And this can be really complicated, especially when the underlying AI is always changing. Okay, when the models are constantly changing, and we are in an AI arms race. Okay, I think I heard a statistic. I'm not sure if this is exactly the correct number, but it was like a 20,000 to 1 gap of the time, effort, money spent on advancing AI as compared to safety in AI. You can measure that in terms of people working on it, or however you want to, but there is a lot more effort being devoted to getting AI to be more powerful all the time, and we're not keeping up on the safety and risk side. Now, there's probably some other reasons why agentic AI is untestable, but those three are my starting point. Now, can AI in general be tested? Well, Yeah, I think it can be tested if you have the right test strategy. And that test strategy is going to look a lot different than a traditional test strategy. It's going to have to rely heavily on test automation, but it's also going to involve a lot of human evaluation. Some of the comments I got back from my LinkedIn post mentioned doing things like maybe statistical process control. Well, that might work to some degree, but when we think about the manufacturing environment, which uses a lot of SPC, basically quality control, the determinant of whether or not something is a defect is some sort of specification. And we have some way to measure what is being defective. And of course, we can do it before something is considered complete or after something is considered complete. But the idea of even what is a defect really has to be re-examined in the age of AI. Now, we all know that AI can fail. There are hallucinations, there's biases, there's all kinds of things that can happen. In fact, there are some things that you can throw to AI that can cause it to fail. Just give it a basic prompt, but put something right in the middle of it that makes no sense and see what happens. I know one of the AIs that I use to create images, whenever I ask it to create an image, it will consistently put a stranger's picture in the image. And I have to go back and ask it, that looks great, but can you put my picture in there? And then it will. But it knows all about me, but it doesn't know enough to put my own image in like a promotional picture that I might create. So the real challenge here is, how do we test the non-deterministic and evolving nature of AI? Well, that once again is a topic that a lot of people are talking about and we're still working on. Once again, it becomes a different way of looking at AI. It's more like, what are we learning from AI as we're seeing it behave? And once again, it's constantly changing its behavior. One other data point I think is significant to look at here is what's happening in the realm of insurance. And this is really important for people who are in executive management positions, especially, that the insurance companies are becoming more and more wary of AI and its potential for error. And so many of them are excluding anything that incorporates AI in any product or service. Now, this started as an exclusion just for generative AI, but it is quickly escalating to just about anything using AI. And this shows the high level of risk, and it also justifies the best possible testing that can be done. In fact, if I look at one website for an insurance company, some of the uses that are excluded from some of the liability and insurance coverages are things like this: the generation or dissemination of any content or communications using AI. So think about that when you have AI responding to your emails. The failure to detect or identify AI-generated content created by third parties. Allegedly inadequate AI governance, policies, training, or controls. That's where testing comes in. Testing is a control. The breach of any duty relating to the development, deployment, or oversight of AI. Any product or service that incorporates AI. Now, I have to admit, in these days, that's nearly anything. Okay, we have to be very, very careful about what the scope is with AI. Also, statements or representations made by chatbots or virtual agents. So think about this when you have that little chatbot on your website that's giving advice to people or answering questions about something that you could be liable for the information that it gives. Also, disclosures or representations about a company's AI capabilities, risk, or strategy. You got to be careful with what you say. And also alleged violations of evolving AI-related laws, regulations, or disclosure requirements, or regulatory investigations or demands relating to AI risk management. And those are just a few. It's really serious stuff when you stop and think about it. So carefully consider the use of agentic AI, and don't forget that you're releasing untestable things into the real world, and that should cause anyone a lot of concern. And agentic AI is only going to increase. The question is, will people and organizations use it responsibly? You know, I keep thinking about all the cases where AI broke the quote-unquote rules with absolutely no regard. And that's what really concerns me. Well, thanks a lot for watching this episode. I look forward to seeing you next time. If you want to contact me about any questions or any input that I can provide to your organization on coming up with your AI strategy, you can reach out to me through LinkedIn or through my website at riceconsulting.com. Thanks a lot for watching.